Welcome to the Guntersville Grass Roots podcast presented by Direct Lending. Spring is in the air. Well, almost. It's cold and snowing today, but spring is in the air. Spring is almost here. If you're in the market for a new boat and you're not fortunate enough to be able to pay cash for it, be sure and give those guys a call. Check out their website, reclending.com. Todd and Dustin and that group over there, they're great to work with. They helped me out last year. They've got a lot of different options. So that business part's out of the way. It's the third week of February. It's cold, it's snowing, it's below freezing. And before all this crap came back, the fish were really biting. They absolutely whacked them in the BFL last weekend, just shy of 30 pounds, 29 something. Austin Shields won. I think there was 19 or 20 bags over 20 pounds. The co-anglers could only have 3 fish, but they had really good weights as well, which is a bonus for a co-angler these days because, if somebody's staring at a scope, it's hard to catch a fish. But apparently that's not the only game in town on Guntersville right now. I haven't really been because of the weather, and I was tagging fish last weekend. I got all the Bass Cash Bash fish tagged. It starts March 1st. We've got fish scattered from one end of the lake to the other, as far up as the 117 ramp and as far south as Honeycomb. So all the way in between. And, of course, they'll go to moving when it warms up just a little bit. They always do. And it starts March 1st. Don't be that guy. We have the videos coming out for the truck and boat release. The boat tag was posted a day or two ago on the Bass Cash Bash Facebook page. It was released at the mouth of the state park out in front, Mouthtown Creek State Park, out in the river out there. And then the truck tag was released out in the river, out in front of Mink Creek Light, just south of Goose Pond, just a little ways. That video will be out soon as well. Trey is not here. He was going to be here, and then our scheduling got mixed up, and then it snowed. And he's going to be here next week. We're probably going to have a couple out-of-town guests. We'll work on that. Hopefully be able to get all that put together. So we've had a flood. The water's back down. I hear it's muddy. Didn't look that bad when I was there last Saturday. But what we're going to do today is we're going to bring on somebody that I've not had on before. I don't know him very well. I've talked to him. Tagged some fish at a couple tournaments that he was kind of helping with. But today we're going to have one of the guides, Jason Whitehead, on, and we're going to see if he can tell us a little bit about what's going on the lake. I've got Captain Jason Whitehead on here with us. Jason, Alabama Elite Fishing Guides here on Guntersville, has been guiding here a few years now, I think. And not only has he been guiding, he won a pretty big tournament not long ago, didn't you?
We did. The ABT 100 a couple weeks back, probably about a month ago.
Yeah.
We won it, and that was a fun day.
Yeah, your partner was, as a team tournament, was Matt Adams, right?
Yeah, Matt Adams.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And I don't know Matt. I know of Matt, and everybody runs in the same circles, so it's hard to not know names. But I was tagging fish at that thing, and I saw that name, and I'm like, wait a minute, I know that guy. So
yeah. Matt's up here too now. Like he relocated. He was down in Oxford, and he did some guiding from time to time. He's Coast Guard licensed as well, so he's going to be around the lake also a little bit more this year. He just moved over on the south end of the lake, so we're not far from one another.
Oh, so he's living here. Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, he moved up here now, so he'll be here. I mean, he's still traveling. He's fishing the opens and a couple other trails and stuff this year, so he'll be traveling a little bit. But while he's in town, he'll be taking some folks out guiding on Guntersville also.
Okay, all right. And let's see, if I remember correctly, like he just first one out of making the elites last year.
Yes, yeah, he was really close. I mean, he actually had more top 10s, I think, than any of them did. I think he was 4 top 10s, had a whole bunch of live coverage, and he had a good year. All but I think 2 tournaments he stumbled a little bit, but I mean, that group of guys is just unreal. I mean,
yeah.
If you look at it now, I pulled up actually before we jumped on the phone. I pulled up because the Elite Series started today, and there's 3 or 4 of those names that are rookies that are in the top 10 right now. So I mean, those guys they're the real deal.
I had it on too because I saw something a few days ago where they were putting it on a Roku, and I've got a TV in my office that has like security cameras on it, and it might have a Roku stuck in it too. So I flipped it on there this morning and watched a little bit of it while I was sitting behind the computer typing appraisals. So, Anyway, I appreciate you taking a few minutes to come on here and talk Guntersville with us. As is the case in Alabama, if you don't like the weather, hang around a day or two and it'll change. So, What are you seeing on the lake right now?
It has changed these variable, and it seems like every time we get the Angler's Choice guys that come down from up north, they
Yep,
just
it's
decide to
time.
bring that cold weather down with them. Um, it's all over the place. We had a lot of, the rain that we had brought the water up. There was a pretty good shallow bite starting to crank up because we had a week or two in the 70s about 2 weeks ago, and then it's just slowly declined since then. The water levels dropped back down. We just need that stability. You can still catch some bass up shallow. The majority of them are going to slide back out just a little bit in that, 6 to 10, 12-foot range. And then you can still catch some out deeper, but a lot of changing and a lot more current than we've had all winter. So it's definitely, it's a day to day,
So
day to day.
every day is a little different. What's the water color look like out there right now?
I was down yesterday, put in down at Honeycomb just to try to get out of some of the wind. It looked pretty decent. I mean, it's stained. I wouldn't say it's muddy. There is some logs and stuff floating on the main river. So anybody that's listening, make sure that that you pay attention, especially when you're out there on the main river. They still have over 100,000 cubic feet a second rolling, not including the floodgates. So there's a ton of current on the main river, and that's where I'm seeing the dirtier water
On the main river.
on the main river.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the creeks are clearing up a little bit.
Yeah, the creeks is where, I mean, that's definitely where I would be focusing in on. There's just too much current on that main river right now. It's got a lot of fish that are just kind of shoved out of the main river and pushed back into the creeks and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So when you say shallow bite, define what you mean as shallow. Like, I mean, obviously the water was a foot higher than full pool earlier, but
Right.
I mean, but like you weren't catching them in people's yards, but you were catching them up spawning direction type shallow.
Yes, yes. I mean, we actually caught a couple fish. I had some clients in the boat. They wanted to kind of ping pong around and see what Guntersville had to offer in different depth levels, which is one of my favorite trips. That way I get to show off more of the lake and we get to see what it's actually capable of, not just specifically one pattern or one technique.
Sure.
We can bump from fishing deep, we can go mid depth, and then we can go shallow. Shallow to me is anything less than about 8 foot. That's shallow because typically when you're less than 8 foot, you're going to get into grass, and that doesn't matter if you're in the middle of the lake, the south end, or the north end.
Right.
So when the water comes up, I mean, let me back up a little bit. There's two groups of bass on Guntersville. There's fish that live shallow year round, regardless of if it's 110 degrees outside in the summer or if it's 30 degrees outside this time of year. There's fish that just live shallow year round. I think the bulk of the population do live out a little bit deeper, 12 foot plus. But when you get a week of 70-degree weather, a lot of those fish that do live out, they slide up too. So we had kind of the perfect storm 2 or 3 weeks ago, which was before, I think it was before the BFL. And a lot of fish I mean, the water come up, the fish come up with it. I had some friends of mine that caught some in 2 foot of water. And then that day that I was talking about with the clients, we caught some in 25 foot of water. And we also caught some in 4 to 5 foot of water around scattered grass.
Mm-hmm. What kind of grasses are you seeing out there still? I mean, what kind of leftover grass are you seeing?
There's a little bit of everything. Like I know, the spraying and everything they did last year, it basically killed it from the surface down, but it didn't take out all of it.
Oh
It
yeah.
did not. It just knocked it down off the surface. It definitely knocked it back, but it didn't. It didn't get rid of a bunch of it.
Well, and they're
So
not
it's
spraying
just a mix of
everywhere, but
everything. Yeah.
but they couldn't. I don't think the TVA biologist told me, he said, I don't think we could kill it all if we wanted to, particularly the eelgrass.
Yeah.
Because they just don't have an answer for that. But
Yeah, you got to make sure of everything. I mean, the eelgrass is there. We see more of it than we do anything else. There is some milfoil in places here and there. Of course, I haven't seen anything green
right.
yet. And then you got hydrilla, which is basically just the stalks. So those grow in 8 to 10. You'll just see single stalks kind of stuck up until March or April when the water temperatures get back up, and then you'll start to see some of that green stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
grass is grass in the wintertime. I usually don't specifically target one type or another type of grass this time of year.
Do you think it's better when you find a mix of grass versus a specific style of grass?
I think it's more like in the grass itself. I think it's more just scattered. So you can have scattered clumps of eel, scattered clumps of of hydrilla, that is more important than just a whole area. Because if you get one area that's just drowned it out, we typically don't catch as many fish in those areas that have multiple species of grass. There's just too much of it. So I typically myself target more scattered grass in areas. You'll have a hard bottom, then you'll have a clump here, or fishing the edge of an eelgrass line or the edge of coontail, milfoil, hydrilla, anything like that. They typically relate to those edges. And when you have a lot of water fluctuation, those edges will play more also, because those fish that do slide up, get up there on top, that water starts falling, they'll just slide right out there to the edge of it.
Mm-hmm. What was the water temp yesterday?
46 in one area. That's the warmest I saw.
Wow.
The colder you get, the closer you get to the main river, the colder it's going to be.
They're moving all that water through.
Weekend.
Yeah, and
yes, it just doesn't have a chance. I mean, even if we hit 70 degrees for 2 days with that much current going, it takes a longer for that water to actually warm up.
Yeah, and they're pumping a lot of water from up north. I mean, it's a river system, so they're moving it on through. And I didn't realize, I had not looked. I didn't realize that the current was still that high, because I mean
it is rolling.
Dangerous. Yeah, I mean, could be dangerous if you hit a log. So I mean,
yes, there is a lot of them floating. I mean, it was a lot of them out there, and with this little bit of wind and chop we got on it, it's a little bit harder to see. But most of the floating debris that I saw was in the main river.
Yeah, well, that's so let's do this. If you're going to go fishing tomorrow for you to try to catch fish, big or small, just whatever, tell me 5 or 6 rods you'd have on your deck and what you'd have tied on.
So what I do every day, regardless if it's me going fishing or a guide trip, every day I play as many variables on the lake as I can. And for whatever reason, this lake, the variables affect the fish. So you have current, you have temperature, you have wind direction, you have lake levels, you have all these different variables. So before I ever put the boat in the water, I try to go through all the variables that I can and put as many of those variables in my favor as possible. So with the lake falling, I don't see it coming back up just because of the amount of current that they have rolling through it. The lake's probably going to be falling. So I'm just going to eliminate anything less than 4 foot. Number one, because it's cooler water. Number two, because the lake's falling. Those fish are going to be harder to catch, a little bit shallower. So I'm going to focus first on that 8 to 12 foot. Maybe some current seams, definitely out of the bulk of the current. So the eddies, the edge of the current seams, if I'm focusing out, if I'm going back into a creek, same thing, those 6, 8 to down to about 12 foot range. That's where I would start at and then just kind of go from there, depending on what I'm seeing. Bait fish are still the deal. Like you get in an area, you find some bait fish, you're going to catch some bass.
Yeah. So bait wise, what would you be throwing, you think? I know it obviously does variables play a factor.
I mean, you gotta have an A-rig tied on this.
Yeah, they've been killing it.
So
yeah,
the A-rig, and I think there's a tournament this weekend on an A-rig. I didn't look into it too much.
There is stealth lures.
Not able.
Yeah. Stealth lures. You got to throw theirs. It's a clear deal. It's got it almost looks like big monofilament type stuff, but they're kind of pricey, but they got a $5,000 guaranteed first place. And I heard yesterday they only had 14 boats pre-registered, which people will show up, but man, it's going to be 24 Saturday morning. I'm not man enough for that.
That's chilly. The A-rig. Yeah. And I haven't put my hands on one of those A-rigs yet. But from everything that I've seen about them, I mean, they're a good looking rig. So that's one that I would definitely have tied on to A-rig. Maybe some type of lighter weight lipless. Like I don't go too heavy this time of year because the fish tend to, on cold front days like this, when we get this cold weather moves in, like a yo-yo and a trap, or not ripping it out of the grass, but just kind of lifting it and letting it flutter back down. So a lighter weight lipless. And then a jerkbait. I love throwing a jerkbait just because I can see, especially on live, how the fish are reacting throughout the day. If they get really aggressive, I know that, I can swap over and even reel an A-rig even faster. So that's one I have tied on. A chatterbait, if I find that the fish are tucked up next to the grass, just because the chatterbait tends to come through the grass a lot better in the trap. And then some type of minnow.
Yeah, gotta have the minnow. Just like
gotta
the
have
A-rig.
minnow.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's So the minnow, obviously, you're throwing shad color. You sticking with shad colors this time of year? You throwing red? What?
No, more when the water gets darker, I tend to go brighter colors. Now, anything natural shad color is going to work really well. Um, but when the water gets dirtier, I tend to go more of a bolder white, like a Arctic white, glacier white, something like that, to make it pop a little bit more when the water is stained up like it has been.
Yeah, yeah. I like a good old white rattle trap myself. That's
Oh
been
yeah,
a February go to for. Well, the water's been so stinking clear for a while. A little color's not a bad thing. So,
no, no.
uh, mud's not particularly all that good. But so you're throwing. Do you throw your A rigs on braid? Do you throw them on fluoro? What do you throw them on?
I throw them on fluoro. No, I've had yes, sir, and that's more just to keep it from catching.
Yeah,
If you
right.
take braid, you throw it out there, it binds up slack. I mean, the next thing you know is you got an A rig pulling the whole rod and everything out of your hand.
If it doesn't
Um,
break it and send your $50
if it
worth of A
doesn't just
rig.
break it, correct. So I've found that when you're throwing now, I throw like 25-pound fluoro, like it's not lightweight fluorocarbon. It's a heavier fluorocarbon, but it comes off the reel a lot better. You're casting distance. You can't get quite the distance out of it, but we don't have that issue of it binding up or catching and breaking off or anything like that. Um, as far as the difference in, because I've had clients in the boat with me, I'm throwing mono or throwing fluorocarbon, and then they're throwing braid, and I can't tell the difference in the two
I agree.
versus the number of bites that you get one to the other. Um, but yeah, I like the fluorocarbon 25-pound.
25 pound. Yeah. It's everybody's got a little bit different take on that. I still throw it on braid most of the time just because that's what I'm used to, but I'm also very careful about how I cast it. If I was a guide and I was having to carry people that may or may not, well, they don't know your equipment for sure, right? And may or may not, I definitely wouldn't want something that snap and, like you say, take the rod or the bait you don't want to replace rods and reels or $30 or $40 worth of A rigs as often as you
No,
have to.
correct.
So,
Yeah, and I throw the diamond baits A rigs. They got a pretty cool swivel action. Actually don't have snap clovers, swivels on there. You actually just thread the bait on. They're really cool, but they're super lightweight. So I mean, you can imagine some of the clients that I get in the boat are not capable of throwing a bait caster. We can throw that rig on 1/8 ounce heads and put them on a spinning rod, like a medium heavy spinning rod, and still cast those out there. So
oh wow.
they're the diamond baits A rigs. They're super light.
Is that the one with the little? It's got like almost like a little heat shrink on the head instead of having a
Yeah.
head.
Yep.
Okay, I've
Yep.
got one and I really like it, and I couldn't remember what it was or where I got it. So
That's it. It's a diamond baits. I know GTO has them.
I thought they
Both
did.
stores, I believe.
Yeah.
Now the frenzy, the 4.5 frenzy is the one that I throw. It's the one that has the blades on it. Last time I was on waterfront, I think they had a handful of them left, but I know Guntersville Tackle has some.
Yeah, they most of the time if they don't have it, you don't need it. So
Exactly.
they're pretty good about keeping stuff in stock. But
Yes, they are.
um, well, Jason, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you to take a guide trip, what's the best way to reach out?
They can look me up, Google, Facebook. It's Alabama Elite Fishing Guide. I'm on all the platforms, so they can look up on there and read reviews and see what we're going. I'm trying to post as many pictures as I can throughout the week, so they can get on there and kind of see what we have been doing. And then my calendar is linked on there also, or they can reach out to me directly. My phone number is 256-530-3306. And they can call, text, or I can send them the calendar on there also.
All right, good deal. Well, Jason, you dropped some pretty good information here. I really appreciate it, and congrats
Yeah, man.
again on that ABT win. That was
I appreciate it.
that's a there's 100 hammers in that one too. So
Yeah, man. I appreciate that. We got a couple more coming up. I know it's got a busy year. The Red Crest is coming this year, so I'm kind of excited about it being here in April. We got the Solo 150 coming up, the ABA Solo 150. Then there's that SPRO Hard Bait Tournament, which I really wish I could fish it. The Freedom Tournament. There's a lot of tournaments coming up the next couple weeks. So.
Oh yeah, I actually talked about both of those right before I got you on.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did. So they the SPRO Hard Bait Tournament. I mean, they have some jerk baits, and of course, everybody thinks March rattle trap stuff like that. You think that's going to be one with scope and a jerk bait or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind
Yeah.
of.
I mean, if it were me, I would throw the Chad Shad and a jerkbait's only two
Oh,
rods
that's
I have
right.
on my front
That's
deck, and
right.
I go for it because the Chad Shad's a hard bait.
That's right. I forgot. I've got one, and I thought about that a few weeks ago, and then I didn't put any more thought. But you're right.
Yeah.
You may not catch many, but if you catch 5, you're probably gonna have 5 pretty good ones.
Yeah, I'm just glad that they've had that tournament on Chickamauga the last few years, and that's a very, very interesting tournament. So I'm kind of glad that they give Guntersville and our lake a chance for that, because that's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, and now the Freedom Marine Tournament, like I don't even fish tournaments much anymore. I don't get to fish enough to keep myself as competitive as I would like, and I don't like losing. So, but now with the Freedom, you're nuts to not fish that thing. I mean, there's like all
Yes,
kinds of crazy
absolutely.
money, and I mean,
Yep. So I think they pay 1 in 5 places down. We were actually fortunate enough. I won it last year. And I
that's right.
won't get to fish it this year, just because it overlaps on the solo 150 schedule.
Oh yeah,
The ADA solo 150 fishes that Friday and Saturday, which I'd already signed up for. And then the Freedom Tournament is also that same Saturday. So unfortunately, I won't be at it. But yes, anybody that doesn't, me personally, I think it's one of the best tournaments on the lake. No,
absolutely,
hands down.
absolutely.
Hands down. You got a chance to
I mean, you can win
compete against everybody, but then you can finish 55th, 65th, whatever that it is, and still have a chance of winning money.
every 10th place is $1,000.
Yes,
Except
that's
through
awesome.
100, and except for 100, I think 100th maybe 5,000. I can't remember. I'd have to go back
Yeah,
and look.
so JD up at Waterfront, he goes, "Man, congrats on the win. I made the same much money as you did." I'm
That's
like,
right.
"Dude,
I forgot
okay."
that.
He did, he did. But yeah, man, I mean, just in everything from the way the tournament flows, and I think Davey Height's coming in again this year to do the weigh in and the MC and stuff, which is always good to see him. And man, it's a great tournament and great for the lake.
Yeah. Well, man, I sure do appreciate you taking a few minutes to share a little fishing information, and we'll be sure and get you back on. And good luck with that 150 coming up.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate that.
Thank you, man. Have a good one.
You too. See ya.
There you have it, folks. That was pretty good information. He didn't really hold much back. You know, it's Guntersville. You're gonna need a lipless. You're gonna need a rig, and of course, now the last couple of years, you need a minnow. Hopefully, looking at next week, it's gonna warm up for a few days. Then it's gonna get cold again. So we get another false spring. Then we get winter. So go to the Bass and Big G website. There's links to all these tournaments. You can sign up for them, or there is a cutoff for the SPRO Hard Bait Tournament. I think you got to be signed up by the 25th, which is one day next week. So they're not taking any registrations the morning of, but there's a link on the Bass and Big G website to register for that. I sent out an email blast last night. If you're on my email list, check your email. Until next time, I think we'll have Trey here next week, but until next time, enjoy the floating grass.